Cool. Recording is on. Hello and welcome to the second day of the mid-cycle. I was just saying the recordings for the previous week's session is already available in the OpenStack Manila YouTube channel. So if you missed something and you'd like to circle back to it and um, recap some of the discussion, please go check the OpenStack Manila YouTube channel. And yep, things should be already uploaded there. Without further ado, let's start with our very first topic of today, which is something we have been discussing as a community for quite some time. And yeah, Eventlet removal. Gotham, would you like to get us started?
Hello. Yes, thanks, Carlos. All right. Yeah, let me do a brief overview of what's going on. I think we had about, you know, uh, quite a few patches merge. I think from my count, about 10 directly related to eventlet removal. And this tracks a community goal that that we've been, you know, actively working towards. The eventlet removal goal is pretty well understood at this point. But if you have any concerns about it, the idea is to replace eventlet with whatever possible sustainable mechanisms exist in the wider Python ecosystem, and most importantly, native Python implementations for threading and multiprocessing. So we've done quite a few changes that actually have set us off into that path very well. And you've seen us do this as an optional thing so far. So in the gazpacho release, um, we merged changes which would let you turn off eventlet and use Oslo services in built mechanism. A different backend is what they called it, and that backend uses native Python threading. Um, so I can give you a thing of what we are doing next. So as of that um, backend, let me just quickly try to show you and speak through it. Uh, so here's a overview. I have this running on my screen. If you click on my name, you'll see it. Uh, so at the command and entry point, we've decided there as to what is getting picked up. Um, and so if you have an environment variable that says OS Manila disable eventlet patching, it would actually not go through the default method that we do, which is we use eventlet to patch some Python the Python built-in um, methods to support threading. And so when we're doing that, what you're getting is green threads. And whereas what if you disable the threading, what we will end up using is we will be spawning new threads, and these are Python native threads, and that's what the Oslo service backend will do every time we need one. And that is governed by how many workers are we requesting, and that sets the parallelism of whatever it is that we're executing. So you're going to see this monkey patching if you set eventlet, which is the default as of today, and if you set the backend as threading, it'll it'll not go through that patching part at all. And we have in fact added something that would do the opposite, which is basically if you've set the backend as threading but through this environment variable, but there was still some patching going on. We would actually there was some eventlet imports going on. We would actually poison it, and you would see this message. Just something for for our own development purposes mostly, so we can catch errors. And we've done it quite well. We have been testing this with unit tests and functional tests on Tempest, and all of that is coming through fine. So all this is merged already. This includes the SH pools that some of the drivers end up using, and the some other replacements of eventlet usage. All of that stuff is merged, including around specific timers, if to do a periodic task and so on. So today, if you're looking at the code, uh, we because eventlet is still the default, we have a Py3 threading talks environment that's set up. And this is how you can run unit tests with the threading mode, and disable eventlet when you're testing with unit tests. And if you're looking at the Tempest jobs, it's not right here, but we had a DNM patch which we were testing with the dummy driver, the LVM driver, and so on. So what's coming this cycle? So a very simple patch. I wish I had hyperlinked this. Oh, actually, there is a simple patch to fix something with the syntax. So it's a one-line patch. It is an internal detail. So there's literally nothing else that's being done with this. That's basically we just didn't take a look at the Cotyledon implementation uh, inside the Oslo service method. So basically, I mean, this default would not work. So in case something did try to initialize as none, it would just crash. But I mean, nothing did. This is just defensive programming at this point. Um, and then the next patch would end up switching the threading backend, the backend to threading. So technically, it would flip this environment option, and it would switch the default concurrency backend from eventlet to native threading through Oslo service. As part of that, updated the doc, made it simpler. So if you did want to use eventlet, and this is temporarily while we still maintain support for eventlet, you can set the eventlet patching variable that we introduced to false. And technically everything else, it is you can see an explanation of a simple explanation of things, that we are using native threading for concurrency that includes all of these services. uh, but the Manila API service is not that we ship, um, uh, is not eventlet compatible. Sorry, it's not threading compatible, I should say. Sorry. And it should be deployed behind an external Whiskey service. And you can choose anything. You can choose uWhiskey, Unicorn, or Apache Smart Whiskey. We test heavily with uWhiskey. We know very large scale deployments are using Mod Whiskey. Things are working fine. I did see one issue with using Unicorn, but I haven't been testing it in the CI with any of my changes here. But that can come as a follow-up thing as well, just to enhance and maintain, the different options that people can have to deploy the API service. We are officially deprecating the Whiskey service when you do this, so technically you will see a warning message, even even with Eventlet, that says that the you cannot run this service standalone. You should be running it with a web service. You know the motivation behind that. It's because that the web services are far more advanced than anything that Oslo service can provide, and they are capable of a lot more configuration that modern data centers demand. So that would be the doc change. And we are then going ahead with um, the default change as such. So we're switching the backend from patching to eventlet to threading, and when this happens, there's no monkey patching. That's what's going on. So is this backwards compatible in a deployment? Um, it would depend. So if you had turned on threading through that environment variable, you're going to see the same effect. If you had not turned on threading and you were accepting the defaults, you would see that the default is flipping. Would that mean that there is any user visible functionality change? No. This is how Manila operates, and right now it will start using threads instead of green threads, and that's the only difference visibly. We are yet to determine whether there is any performance loss or gain. We have done some initial testing, and I will let Carlos speak about that in a bit. Um, so we after we initialize the backend, we go ahead and set up the service as usual, and we go through those steps to uh, kick off the service, the logging, and all that stuff. Yeah, Anup.
Hey, got it. Thanks for presenting this. So, does this also require the driver maintainers to, do some testing from our side? I know that Carlos has been running some tests upstream, right? So, do we also need to do that for the driver side changes, or do we have driver side changes yet? Because, or will it be required a little bit later when we have that change? We will have to do this performance testing.
Yeah, it's a great question. We do have driver changes, not as many. So wherever there were driver
The
uses
reason
of
why I'm asking this is because we have some planned scale testing or some testing that we are planning to do on Manila as well, including the driver, right? So,
Mhm.
uh, do we want to include this code change and then do the scale testing if we plan to do that, or is it not required for us to do that?
No, I would actually. Thanks for mentioning it. Uh, so yeah, so driver changes were made as part of the changes that we made during the gazpacho cycle to introduce a threading backend. So if you did disable Eventlet on or before starting Manila, you would actually see that the drivers were also being using native threads, and if they were using Eventlet directly, that that change, unconditionally uses threading. So that was the impact on drivers, but it wasn't a huge surface. I think the NetApp driver did,
Yeah.
and I think there were a few other drivers that we took care of that were directly importing and using Eventlet, either directly as Eventlet itself, or they were just using a looping call, right? And that came from the Oslo service, and we just made sure that the new looping call that Oslo service is introduced with threading behaved well with whatever their expectations were. But our testing is limited to unit testing with the driver. So with this change, with this patch, I was hoping that you're going to see the Tempest tests automatically run against the drivers and through their third-party CI, and validate if whatever changes we made were correct. But answering your scale question specifically, that has been our concern. And I'll let Carlos fill in the details of what that testing looks like. But it would, I think, in my view, it's pretty cool if we can take a look and suggest any improvements that we can make as we're doing this. We certainly don't want to see regressions or um, you know uh, a drop in the number of parallel requests, for instance, that we can handle, and because there's a lot of burst activity that we've accounted for, but we can't obviously test every single interaction, including every single driver.
Got it. Sure,
Yeah.
I understand. I think what we can do is when we do this or plan this for the tab driver, we will make sure that all the event related changes, including driver and upstream, are merged to that branch where we are testing, and
Okay.
then we will perform the test. So that will also have, if there are any bottlenecks, they will come out, I think.
Yeah. Thank you. I will hand over to Carlos in just a bit. I'll just finish up this stuff. Um, yeah, the rest of it is pretty straightforward. Wherever we're doing eventlet based testing, for instance, we're basically making sure that if eventlet is not monkey patching anything, then you can run this test. Otherwise, skip the test. And you can tell looking at the test name that as to why we're doing that. This whiskey service, for instance, will not be applicable for the threading mode. So it's only when eventlet is enabled. Um, so as an operator, you're going to see the operator impact of this change or upgrade, and what is getting deprecated and so on. So we have announced the deprecation of Eventlet. It's been a while, but we're reiterating that this is still possible. You can force the legacy behavior using Eventlet, but it will go away in the future. Um, and as part of this change, I am also flipping the job. So instead of using Py3 threading to only test threading, I've now made the job Py3 eventlet, so that we can test eventlet unit tests. Sorry, unit tests with eventlet backend. But by default, everything else, all of the other test jobs, tox jobs will end up using threading. So it's flipping whatever we did with the Gazpacho release. That's what this stuff is. Um, any questions on this change?
No, looks clean, I think.
Yeah, that's
Great,
pretty good.
thank you. So when my recommendation is to merge these so we can actually have a longer test uh, s- you know thing, especially as other features are coming in and you want to make sure that they're working fine. I would basically you know treat this as some sort of a, oh, this could break things kind of a change if you're trying to merge and we don't want to merge too close to the end, uh, which ended up happening with the Gazpacho release, and took a lot of test cycles to resolve. um, I can quickly go through the rest of them. This one's easy. So this is on the Whiskey service. So if you are trying to use the threading backend and you're trying to um, enable the Whiskey service, you're actually going to get a runtime error. And this is by design, right? Because the Whiskey service does not support threading, and that's because we have no plans in Oslo service to add threading support to the Whiskey service. For all the reasons I mentioned, you should be using an external Whiskey server. It could be anything, any commercial external web service would do. So that's what this patch is. It's simple. And then the final patch. This is the one that I I don't think we need to merge. We need not merge in the Hibiscus cycle. I didn't add a -1 because I thought we will discuss it. What is this doing? It's actually removing Eventlet, and it's pretty cool. It's been tested. So technically, we just get rid of Eventlet entirely from the thing. So you'll no longer have an option to use Eventlet at all. So is this patch uh, futuristic? Yes, it is, because I had no intention of actually getting this merged in the Hibiscus cycle. It was basically trying to show us what it would look like to get rid of it. and whether our CI would mind and so on. Um, but as per the goal, the maximum duration that Eventlet has in our community is 2027.2. But we were discussing in the last cycle PTG that we probably don't want to maintain support for Eventlet until that time. It would probably make sense I mean, it would make sense to run with it through this cycle, through this release 2026.2. But I would vote to get rid of it in 2027.1. Why am I thinking this way and not like trying to use the maximum runway that we need? Because I believe that Manila is not as complicated a use case for multiprocessing and threading as some of the other services are. I can understand the nervousness that the maintainers of the other services are as to why they gave themselves a longer runway. It will become a world of pain for us to maintain eventlet support if we wanted as a small team to do this with the changing Python versions. Eventlet did end up eventually supporting Python 3.1.4, and I have run some tests against it. Nothing that Tempest did pointed at anything that could break with Eventlet. But I'm just not comfortable. That with the next cycle, advanced testing will be on Python 3.15, and I know for sure. We've not looked at any of the bugs that Eventlet has hit with Python 3.15. So there are so many other you know things that we could be working on rather than trying to keep Eventlet alive. So that was my reasoning over here. So I'll go ahead and place a -1, saying this is a candidate for early 2027.1. That's my recommendation. But we can discuss on how that would go. Any questions here? If not, the last patch in this series, and I think I should rebase it on top of something else. I will is basically just adding documentation for our WSGI service. It we already did have it, and we wrote documentation on how to do this with uWSGI and how to do that with ModWSGI and so on. I just rewrote some of that documentation, and I also added Unicorn. Um, and I was going to test Unicorn. That might be something that it'd be nice to actually run at least one. Um, so one of the test jobs with and maybe one of the test jobs with ModWSGI. The funny thing about this was we were testing with ModWSGI, and we actually removed ModWSGI testing across the board, because whenever you make changes to any of the ModWSGI configuration, you have to end up restarting Apache. Not reload, restart. And so that basically affected the way we do DevStack, because DevStack is a bunch of shell scripts, as you know, and some of it is running. I mean, it runs quite fast. So we're like setting up a ModWSGI service for Nova API, restart Apache. So we set up a ModWSGI service for Cinder API, restart Apache. Set up a ModWSGI service for Manila API, restart Apache. So there's just a lot of restarts for Apache going on, and when it does, Apache has this cooldown timer. So technically, it sees that sort of a thing as a service issue, or even a vulnerability of sorts. So it basically crashes, and it stops working. So we have to think of workarounds and stuff like that. So because of issues like this, they just thought, it's much simpler to just run with uWSGI. Let's just remove Apache support from DevStack. They didn't totally rip it out, but we've stopped testing with it. So I actually would feel more comfortable if we added at least one test job back with Apache, because I know that there are large deployments that use this stuff. But that's the same sentiment I have for Gunicorn. I don't know who else uses it, but if we are going to recommend it, might as well just test it. It should be pretty lightweight for us, and none of these web services, they should directly impact our functionality. But of course, it's basically what works best for what deployment. That's it actually from my end, and I think I should uh, pause here, ask if you have any questions, and pass it on to Carlos for um, the rally work that's going on, as well as the root trap removal.
No questions on my end. I wanted to say, like, thanks for all the great work. And yeah, I agree with, like, removing it entirely in injury. I think it's also a direction other teams are taking. Like, but I do appreciate already the patches there to remove it completely. I think that gives us some more confidence of, like, things will be fine. Things are fine after we do the removal, and I think it's, like, heading into the right direction. So yeah, I think we are in a good shape at this moment, and yeah, I think, yeah, let's merge everything we can for the Hibiscus cycle, ensure that we have stability before we do the complete removal. I think that's the best way for us to also be safe with all of these changes, because they are big changes. We'll talk about performance a bit in the rally results, but yeah, that's pretty much my comments on that. And yeah, again, I appreciate all of the hard work on that.
Thank you. All right. Then I guess I would just ask for reviewers to sign up for this, and that's it from me. I'll hand it back to you, Carlos.
Awesome, thank you. And yeah, I can do a bit of a cold walkthrough as well. That's There's a lot going on for the whole Eventlet removal. I think I've picked up a couple of items in the beginning, and yeah, now I'm also looking at the testing, as Gotham said. So yeah, maybe I'll start with PrivSep and root rep, and then we can go to performance testing. But like, the whole stories, the whole story for root rep and PrivSep is kind of it became a tech debt, to be honest. So what happened was, we at some point um, we have a community goal that was pretty much telling the whole community to move away from root rep and implement PrivSep instead. What is the benefit of doing that? So root rep, like, it's used for running commands that we need under sudo. So for example, Manila's running in a controller node, it needs to run some commands with sudo privileges sometimes, depending on the driver, depending on whatever we are doing. And what root rep does is it spawns a new root process for every single privileged command, and each call will have forks, and then it will load the filters, will validate if the command is actually valid, if it's actually like something that is within the filters, because the filters are kind of one barrier of preventing people to execute commands that they shouldn't be able to. So there's something that's called a filters file that I can show you here. So, and that's actually being removed. So yeah, these are our filters. Basically, everything that's within this list should, Manila would be able to run and spawn a new process, get sudo privileges, and run some of these. So this is one of our guardrails for ensuring nothing is, being executed as root if like needed. But again, like, it's processes, like one process at a time, and then like we pay the cost of spawning multiple um, processes, and like there is the whole filter chain. And what we are doing instead, we have Oslo Privsap, which is a single privilege daemon that has like the privileges we need, and then we just need to annotate like the things we need and call it. And yeah, you can imagine, like it's a single daemon. We won't keep spawning many processes, and at the end we'll pretty much run what we need. And we also had the chance, and that's one of the things that I was talking to Gotham earlier in this week. Doing this, we also have the chance to reevaluate our usage of a couple of things. And yeah, no shell injection risks, and pretty much like it sounds cleaner. So the whole community started this effort of migrating away from Privsap to Rootrep. We started our work. We already have some code merged in Manila, which we started a couple of years ago. So the LVM driver is already migrated. We do have, I think, a couple of other things, maybe Manila data at this point, and yeah, a couple of pieces of the generic shared driver were also migrated. So we have been doing this migration process for a while, but there is another downside for Rootrep at this point, that we realized that will help us speeding up our whole process. Um, Rootrep also uses Eventlet, and if we want to truly get rid of Eventlet, we need to remove Rootrep as well. So that's pretty much why we are also needing to pursue the migration from Rootrep to Privsap. So at the end, this is the series of changes. They are identified by this BP Privsap migration, and I think I have 10 changes up right now, and I pretty much organized them in the order of first couple of changes to the core and first-party drivers, and then some third-party drivers, and then some extra fixes that we might need. When I realized, after doing some testing and all that. So first thing we have, other than what's already migrated, is networking. So we do a lot of networking plumbing for a couple of drivers. And why we need that? Well, our service VMs, or the VMs that serve us share servers, for example, in the generic driver, they need to be connected to the same network that is reachable by the VMs that will mount the shares. So we have these VMs as share servers, and then they need to be reachable by the VMs that are mounting. So there is a bunch of network plumbing going on. For example, creating of VET pairs, creation of a lot of other things, like setting up Linux bridges, and there's a whole amount of things going on. And then through one of the reviews, this is one of the examples where we identified that we might need to move away, I mean, to stop using these privilege calls and likely use some library that we already know that does the trick, which is the case, for example, um, for the some IP commands, for some other things like routing commands, like the that is offered currently by the PyRoute2 library. So it was an opportunity to do that. And what these changes do, like you can, it's how does the structure of this looks like? Well, it's pretty much refactoring and ensuring that things remain working the same way as they did, because we need to migrate from something that have been working for quite some time into a new way of doing this thing. And then most of the code will look pretty much similar to what it does, honestly, unless we decide to do some refactoring in the meantime. So, for example, if we look at this Linux interface, for example, right? We try to modularize every single one of the commands that we were running into different modules in Manila under the Manila Privsap. And for example, here we are importing things for networking. So instead of just doing OVS via CTL spawning, like forming a command with a list and then sending that to the execute, which will use the root rep filters and will run this whole command with all of these pretty much set here and programmed by someone or for us. Uh, Instead of that, we'll just we moved all of this implementation to the prefab networking module, and then we are adding exactly what we need only. And it looks cleaner, to be honest. If you look at this implementation, for example, it's way easier to look at something like this. It's more readable to look at something like this. And there's also the other privileges that I was just mentioning. So when we look at the Linux interface, for example, and we see it's calling networking, right? But if we turn to the correspondent prefab networking, and then if we look at what was the example here, it was OVS add part. And then we go map the implementation to OVS add part here. That command was ported here. And then we have the entry point, right, as a decorator here. We're saying that we need root privileges for this, and the privsep daemon will actually run this command and ensure that we get this command to run as like a privileged user. The same implementation should be here. So that's one of the key aspects of this whole migration. Like we should always like at least maintain the functionality and ensure that things are not breaking, not change flags or things that might upset drivers or might upset any configuration. So most of the porting of the changes, they look just like this. Like it's we to implement new modules or new methods in the modules or make changes to the ones that we already implement, because there is a lot of reusage as well. Commands that were called by the LVM driver are also called by the container driver, because container also uses LVM, or the generic driver also sharing some calls with other commands or pretty much some OS calls like mkdir. So that mkdir is pretty much used by a lot of other places in Manila. So it just makes sense to reuse it. And then at the end, if we look at the top of the tree and look at what mkdir looks like, we'll see that there's a whole different amount of flags that you can use because it's actually targeting all of the usages from all of the drivers, and we are just reusing that code and making it work with for everyone. So yeah, this is pretty much what it looks like. For share network, the networking migration, we also have Manila data utils, which is like a whole long thing as well. Yeah, I need to revisit the zoo failures here. I was pretty much investigating some of them earlier, and in this recent patch set it failed. But yeah, that's one of the ones that I need to get back to. And we do have a lot of other changes. So for example, for Ganesha, we needed to make a couple of changes. And we have three third-party drivers. So Huawei was making some calls that use rootrep, HPE as well, A3, HPE 3PAR, and IBM GPFS. These ones, they are tricky. We don't have any CI to back us up because the CI for these three storages, they are not working at the moment. And it would be lovely if we could get maintainers to take a look at these changes. For HPE, I thank Srinesh for taking a look at the changes, and that's pretty much what I expected. And ideally, we would have the CI testing or someone setting up even a lab stack to help us testing this. If we can't, I don't know, these drivers are not being well maintained, or we don't have a lot of contributors actively contributing patches and CI for these drivers. So I think if reviewers are okay, and if we look at the point of let's try to maintain compatibility with what we had before, I think yeah, we should go ahead with these changes because we need to get like to get done with this migration. And we do have some first-party drivers as well, like ZFS. ZFS is failing one test, but it's not related to this migration. Usually, it's actually one intermittent test. Sometimes it fails, sometimes it passes. If we look at the whole execution or the build history for this job, there are some failures, there is some success. It's pretty much one test that is intermittently failing. And yeah, most of the changes they look similar. So and then there was one other change that needed that I identified when removing root rep for the LVM driver. This is also part of the relation chain. and the change that removes root wrap finally, right? We do have CI mostly passing. The container driver is not passing yet because of the whole chain, right? The container driver still needs some work, which is currently the staging area of my machine at the moment. But yeah, I'll push these changes as soon as I can. And also the ones related to the reviews on the Manila networking one. But this change, it should be our source of truth if this whole thing is working. We should expect most, if not all, of the jobs passing for this, just because like this is a testament for us that we are not breaking any first party or third party drivers while removing or migrating away from root wrap. So this is pretty much what this migration looks like and why we need to do it. I think I'll stop here because it's pretty much it for this, and we'll ask if you have any questions, and then we can move on to the next item, which would be the testing, the performance testing. So any questions on root wrap and brief zap migration? And like I'm not sure, is that clear? And yeah, we ideally would have this changes merged by the end of the cycle. So yep. Any questions?
No questions, but thanks for working through this. And I wanted to note about the third-party drivers where CI is not working. So we are totally in the, I mean, we have the right to replace whatever we wanted in these drivers to get community goals like this working, right? Ideally, you will have vendor participation, at least as far as reviews go, if not a working CI system, which is actually a mandatory thing that we were expecting. Um, so it's all right. I would say just add signaling, maybe even through the release note that this driver has not been tested with these changes. And if folks are comfortable with that, um, they will continue to use the driver. Um, if not, they will at least raise a bug or get that release note fixed when they do end up testing it and finding any issues.
Agreed. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, otherwise this is internal detail that you don't need to write release notes for. I mean, the only external detail is the fact that root wrap is going away, and along with it, all the filters that administrators would have to maintain is going away. So because everything is moving to a different mechanism.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, this looks good.
I think taking care of the docs here as part of this patch. Try to filter everything and remove. So and yeah, also adding a release note. I'm not sure. There is upgrade. I've added a piece for upgrade and another one for security because like it's root privileges, all of that. I think it also ties with security stuff, but this is more on a note of uh, look at this DC goal. Things should be working and it should be safer now, rather than like saying that there should be a risk, because I don't think there should be one with this migration.
Makes sense to me.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I if no other questions, I think I'll quickly go through the rally branch comparison job, and yeah, we can take a look at this together. So yeah, what is this job? Like if you look at it here, you will see that it's pretty much us defining a couple of variables and saying run this job. And it's actually, I didn't actually set it to non-voting. It's actually voting on this change, which is funny because usually you don't introduce something that is already voting. But yeah, we can make that change. Um, but what's my point with this change, and what is the rally branch comparison job? So rally does performance testing in OpenStack, and then you can get the numbers for performance, and then we already have a Rally job running in our CI that pretty much helps us understanding, are things working just fine, or aren't things working just fine, or like, what is the is there any performance regressions, or what are the numbers for performance looking like. So for this Rally job, we have a set of tests that were implemented a while ago. And this set of tests, it needs some updating, yes. And we will likely get there as part of this cycle as well. But mostly what it does is it iterates through the same test that we predefined a couple of years ago, more than a couple, like a bunch of years ago. Um, it goes through this test. For example, create a share network, create a security service, and runs it, I don't know, 10 times. And then it gets the average and compares the results. And then it generates other numbers like the average, the mean, all of that. So there's a whole uh, bunch of numbers being generated as part of that. And while we were thinking about how can we ensure that after we remove Eventlet, our performance is going to be the same as it was, or better or worse, how can we look at performance and compare when doing the switch from a green thread to a native thread, which is pretty much what we are doing with the Oslo threading instead of the Eventlet. So it's hard to quantify, and the whole idea of this job is to run the same test twice. So this depends on a couple of other changes, but more importantly, this change, which is almost merged. This change is adding a job that allows comparing the results for two different runs. And how and why are we doing that? So how are we doing that? First, we needed to look back at how we do these tests for branches, right? And for a couple of different other things, actually. So when we look at the testing for branches, we do have the good example of grenade and grenade skip level. More importantly here, the grenade skip level job. What grenade skip level do? It runs grenade once, and then it upgrades, and then it runs the grenade test again. Um, do we need grenade here? No. What we would need here to ensure that the performance between one of the branches and another one uh, is not changed is only the upgrade part, so that we could test comparing two different releases of Manila, because these changes to Eventlet and enabling and disabling, they are gradual, right? We are not making them like all at once, so that we can pretty much test from one, one release, or in the same release or stuff like that. You see, yeah, with the work we've been doing, it's happening for a couple of releases already, and in the previous release, we already merged some changes, and there is some more ongoing work now. At the end, what this job is doing is it's reusing the part of Grenade that does the upgrade of DevStack. And then after we do the update of DevStack, we go ahead and run, like, first we set up DevStack, run Rally, collect the result, then do the upgrade in the DevStack to the branch that we are targeting. I think I have it in the, we do have the branches and the defaults here. So we do have this the rules for orchestrating DevStack, and also like everything that we need for running this job. So first, this prepare for Rally task will yeah, do all of the Rally tests set up, and then this run Rally task multiple branches is where the magic is actually happening. So multiple branches, yeah, this one. So it's pretty much doing the grenade stuff, and it's reusing the grenade, and then it reuses the dev stack, it upgrades, and then we will run the grenade tests again, and then we will process these results, and then pretty much share an output for that. We do have other projects also looking at this. The idea is that this job is generic enough for other people to be able to look at, but this is uh, pretty much helping us understanding where the performance of the native threads are standing at the moment. And from what we have been seeing from the previous job runs, we don't have regressions in terms of performance. So that's a pretty good outcome of that. I did not actually have many other log results. I think at the moment I did reject the job just because like it's been some time that I've been only working on the other change. But when we last saw, there wasn't a big or there wasn't a performance loss. That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, we should be able to merge this as part of this cycle as well. We can actually check if this is the run is complete on CI. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much what this job is doing, and how this is how we are trying to ensure that everything is working and we are not losing any sort of performance. Um, yeah, and that's where we are at with the testing. The idea is that we should merge this also as part of the cycle, because the base job is being merged at the moment. The Glance team is also looking at this as a way to test their both their Eventlet changes, and they yeah, I think the Nova team's been doing something similar as well. We talked to them about it in the PTG. Yeah, that's pretty much what this job is doing, and our idea for testing. The idea is that we'll have this as part of the CI as well, and hopefully, like also test the changes that disable Eventlet and everything using this change. I think it helps us understanding and determining exactly um, whether we'll have any performance degradations or not. And maybe we can have a similar approach to what we do with grenade skip level, like ensure that we are not losing performance when going through branches and all that. So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on this. Do you have any questions?
No question. So basically, this rally thing is blocking our side of changes, right?
Yeah, ideally we would have everything being tested by Rally. Yeah.
Okay.
At least a run to ensure that nothing is, like we don't see any major discrepancies in performance.
But I think we could just go ahead and still vote on our own changes
Yes,
because it
agreed.
has been running. Awesome. Thank you. Is there anything that I think it needs a rerun for the logs?
Yeah, I triggered it, and I'm currently watching the logs. Yeah, my bad. I wanted to have it done to show how this is looking like, but it's taking more time than I anticipated. But yeah, it's currently doing the grenade upgrade now.
Okay. I'm just knocking off the dependencies on something else. Sounds fine to me. It's a DevStack plugin change that you had reference to at that rally change.
Yep.
But the other change, of course, has to be from rally. And they approved it very recently. Okay, perfect. Recently, as in today.
Yes. Coincidence.
Great.
Yeah.
Nice. Thanks for persisting with this. I know this has been on your plate for a long time.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And reviews will be welcome on this, and also the precept changes. And thanks, folks, for already starting to look at it. I think some of you have already shared some feedback. So, yeah. All right. Yeah, that's a wrap for me in the event laptops I had. Is there anything else you guys would like to share about Eventlet, or questions or concerns before we move on to the next topic? All right, the silence says no. I think we can, yeah, switch to the next topic.
Um, yeah, hi Carlos. Can I share my screen? Uh,
Yes, I will stop my screen sharing and please go ahead.
are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, uh, as you know, in the previous release, we had introduced our Alletra MP B10K driver with basic features, and as part of this H release, we're targeting snapshot changes for our driver. Um, on our backend array also, with the new version, snapshot related changes became available. So we're introducing that. So we're introducing create, delete snapshot, manage, unmanage, revert to snapshot, and mountable snapshot. Um, During PTG and at the initial discussion in chat, we had discussed about a limitation in our driver and in specific cases where, so in our driver, the snapshot inherits the parent shares access rules. Because of that, it's not possible to independently modify its access rules in case of mountable snapshot. So what we had got as a suggestion, what we had discussed in chat was a new capability we can introduce so that if it's set to true, the mountable snapshot access rule modification will be blocked as a result of that. So pretty much as we had discussed, I've implemented this new capability along with the driver changes as well. So we were able to, I mean, we got Zool running and CA also we were able to run successfully with all the snapshot related tests as well. So I'll first go through the new capability changes, then I'll go to the driver changes. So um, um, coming to the like scheduler changes in driver, we have included this as a um, so yeah, so we're returning a default value false in update share stats, and for our driver, in case of a driver, it would return true. So it would report this as a default capability, and in scheduler within host manager, I've included this in the host state object. Also within uh, update backend, so it gets updated in the host state object, and for pool state I've included it in the uh, within append backend info this function. So just following what the other capabilities did, and uh, scheduler side, these are the changes I made, and based on testing it was working as expected. Also within within utils generate stats, I've included it, so it gets included as part of host capabilities. Um, uh, yeah, you had a question.
Yeah. So just want to know that this optional applicable for all the driver, or this should be specific to the HP driver?
The way it's implemented, it's applicable. Anyone can use it. In that way,
Okay.
it's implemented.
Okay. Yeah, from the implementation, it's look like it's applicable for all the driver, but means
Yeah,
uh,
currently only we are using, but it's anyone can use it. In that way, it's yeah.
in future. Okay.
Yeah, and capability wise, it's nothing additionally driver has to do. If we just set this as a share type, it should work. So it's uh, within the share type. So yeah, these were the scheduler related changes. Then coming to the DB side, uh, within the API, so in get share attributes from share type, here I've included our capability as well. So uh, during any share create operation, at the end of it, this would get added into the share DB, and uh, within the DB model as well, I've included it here. Uh, the share DB model included it, and uh, migration script as well, so that yeah, as part of upgrade, we're adding the column and removing this new column for downgrade. So this is the DB side changes. So after share create, it would be a share property. And finally, coming to the feature itself, as part of share snapshot API, within allow and uh, deny both the snapshot access rule update APIs, I've included this check where we'll just check this capability on the share DB. If it's true, we will return with an error here itself without going forward. Otherwise, we'll let it go through. So this also I tested. It's working as intended. We are getting an error uh, uh, instantly. So this is the main change, and a couple of constant changes as well. So in extra specs, I've added the constants uh, within extra specs optional boolean, and uh, within share type also just a validation boolean validation for this thing, whether it's valid boolean or not. Um, one thing I've not done is I've not included it, exposed it as part of the share detail API. Uh, so I hope that's okay. Since it was not needed, I didn't include it, but just let me know if that is needed, if we need to expose it, but currently I've not done that. Um,
You'll need to, because
okay.
imagine somebody is trying to enumerate a share and basically say ask if that share supports that capability. They're actually not going to be looking at the extra specs for it. They're going to look at the shares capabilities which you have added. So you would have to send it back through the view builder.
Okay, fine. Okay, I'll include that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Um, yeah. And before I go to the driver specific, I'll quickly show what I did for CI. So uh, uh, s- uh, corresponding to this in CI, I've added this capability. So I've added three choices: disabled, optional, and required. Uh, Disable means obviously test does not run, and optional means we will run our test to set this capability and check that access rule updates for the snapshot does not work. Why I included a third option required is in our driver, for example, and maybe other drivers, it's mandatory that whenever mount snapshot is enabled, this inherit capability is also required. Otherwise, we cannot use mountable snapshots. For that use case, I included this. So because so when this is set, we will skip the snapshot access rule tests for our driver, and also in certain mount snapshot tests we'll include this capability, because otherwise the share creation stage itself we will reject it in our driver. So for that purpose we included this, but normally if anyone wants to just test it, optional is good enough. So for that I've done it this way, and mainly added one test and added this skips for other tests. So this is the CI specific to this capability change. I'll go to the driver changes quickly, but anything before that?
Yeah, I was wondering. So you needed API micro version changes as well, right?
Yeah, I have not done. I have not done it because I didn't expose it through the API yet. But
Hmm.
I think once I do that, I need it.
Yeah, you will need it to that stuff, and that will actually allow you to test this even with Tempest. So basically, you will have to just the same tests that you've added, you would probably also validate the share model is returning, the share APIs are returning the new
New one.
capability that you're
Okay.
adding. And I was going to comment on your patch, but if you want to switch back to the thing, I wanted to show you something from the constants file to use that as a reference.
Sure. Yeah.
So you see, if you scroll, yeah, actually, right there. So you see all of those things that have underscore support, underscore support, underscore support on them. So that's
Correct.
been a convention for any
Ah.
Boolean operation. So
Okay.
this is a Boolean operation, right? Like this is a so are the rules being inherited or not? Right? That's the only two values that are possible.
Correct.
Yeah. So
So I'll,
that
yeah.
mhm. So that would be a feedback to take to technically try to make it look like those. That would
Sure.
actually be a
I'll.
bigger change because you're gonna do it in both places.
Uh, sure. Sure. I'll include that. That's okay. Yeah. I can add that. Yeah. Okay. Um, sure. Okay. Then I'll come to the driver side changes. So um, yeah. So this is the main driver class and file. So within the folder in Alletra driver, we've included our main driver class inheriting. So here, changes wise, we've updated the driver version. Uh, Not much changes here in initialization. So within the uh, setup as well, some minor changes with respect to timeout for the REST API to the backend. We'll timeout if the request is too long. For that, I've added one argument. And uh, so one thing which we are doing here is I've added a feature support handler class so that um, like I mentioned in our device version, based on the version we are supporting or not supporting certain features we want to determine. So for that, I've just initializing this feature support handler object. So for example, as part of setup, we'll do this to check whether we need to report snapshot capabilities or not. So here we have that check to check if the device version is 10.6.2 or not. If it's less than, we will not report it. Um, this is the change in setup, and the existing functionality is not much change. Create share, delete share all remain as is. In delete share, I just added some additional logging for one error, but not much else. And uh, okay, so coming to the snapshot changes, uh, I'll just go through one flow. Rest of it is pretty similar. So uh, in create snapshot, first we are getting the parent share details from private storage, which we would have done during share creation, validating whether the share exists on the backend array. Then I'm just calling create snapshot on the snapshot handler. Um the snapshot handler is a file I have uh, included here. It's a new file. Um, so this handler will mostly call file share or file system handlers because on the backend these are the resources. Since some operations are complex and require like 2-3 steps, I've introduced this new snapshot handler to handle that. So once we call uh, this create snapshot on the snapshot handler class, here also we'll do an initial validation. We'll get the parent file system details. Uh, I'll just show how the resource looks. So usually on our backend, when we create a share, it will create 3 resources: so share, file system, and share setting or access rules. Similarly for snapshot as well. So we need to make this API call on the parent shares file system resource. So I'm just sending the request to that, and with whatever with the snapshot name which we want to do and the parent file system ID. This will come to the file system handler. Here we will uh, here we have the actual API call which we make, we validate, build the model which we want to send, and we just make the post request. So the model will look something like this, uh, with the parent file system ID in the URI and the name of the snapshot which we want to use sent in the body. And uh, so we just build the body here, send it as a post call, make the request here. We have a REST client which we are using from the first release, and wait for the response. So once the snapshot create completes, we'll return from this, and we'll return back to the snapshot handler. Here, now the snapshot is created. So we'll read the snap share and snap file system, which are the two new resources which gets created as part of our snapshot. Share setting access rule is shared between the two. So we'll just get the details of these two new resources. Then we'll just, by default, the snapshot is offline in case of our backend array. So we need to bring it online in case it's a mountable snapshot. So once again, we'll just do one more API call to the file system handler to bring it online. Again, to bring it online, we'll run this call on the snap file system resource of the created snapshot. So again, similar, in file system handler, it's validation will build the backend model and make the backend call. And once this completes, once this completes, this create snapshot is completed in the snapshot handler function. And I'll come back to the driver club. So here this create snapshot would have completed, and once this completes, we get the snap file share and the snap file system resource details. We'll just store whatever we need for a later edit and delete in private storage based on the ID and key and the values into private storage, and then we'll build what response we need and return back uh, from this function. So based on whether mount snapshot support is true or not, we'll need to either return the export path or not. This is one flow. Other flows are similar. Actually, they're a bit more simpler than this. They're usually a single call only, but other flows follow a similar format. Delete snapshot, revert to snapshot. It's just a single call actually in these cases. We skipped update access rules. In managing an existing snapshot, one thing we're doing is the provider location which is needed, which we need to provide, is the name of the snap file system. So in case a snapshot is already there and we want to bring it, whatever name is already there, it doesn't have to be in this format. Whatever name the user is given already, we'll bring it. This is what we need to provide in that in the manage request. So manage and unmanage. Um, Pretty much that is the main things. And in share stat reporting, we are reporting the snapshot capabilities. Some minor changes in the helpers. We are moving this version validation out of the helper. Some helper functions to build the response. Uh, and like earlier, we were having some helper functions to add and remove data from the private storage. So just updating that. So with snapshot helper functions, update snapshot, get snapshot, and delete with some validation. Um, this is the feature support handler which I was mentioning, and we initialized and we were using in other places. So we'll just initialize it with the device version, and we'll do checks based on the device version where we need to check if certain features need to be uh, implemented, or I mean reported or not. For that, we'll be using this. So this is that feature support handler class which we are using there. Um, One more quick thing. In file share handler, uh, these are all just minor helper function and minor changes, just some helper functions. And one thing we are doing is, as part of share create, like I mentioned before, we are validating that if mount snapshot support is true in case of our driver, it's mandatory that the snapshot inherit share access capability also is provided. We cannot do this without the other capabilities. So that validation we have added is as part of create snapshot. Um, Pretty much that is it, and have added documentation and test changes also. And yeah, I think that is pretty much it. Rest all are minor changes. Yeah, yeah, Carlos.
Yeah, first, pretty good, pretty nice implementation. I really like the handlers and like separating it into classes. It makes the code way more readable to read rather than like we just wanted to make it look like a whole script for the for the snapshot creation. So yeah, thanks for think that through, and yeah, that's definitely helpful while doing reviews. I know you've done that for other places in the driver as well, but looks pretty cool and it's clean to review, so I appreciate that. There is
Sure.
one question though, but maybe you don't have it, or suggestion. So in this scenario, right, you manage the manage, and like you won't use the provider location, you need to use the snapshot file system identifier, which is fine. We do that with the CFS driver already. Were you able to run the tests on the CI for that as well, for the manage operations?
Yeah, I was able to run it. I had enabled those tests as well. Yeah. Um, uh, I can check it once again, the specific tests, how they ran, but yeah.
I can take a look at you. Don't worry. I was just asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I was asking because there is some built-in mechanism that we did as well to help with that. Well, especially when you do not have a provider location, to specify
Okay.
um, for the manage unmanaged of snapshots or shares. So that's pretty much why like I'm bringing this up. It's more like informational for myself, but I can also go take a look. So don't worry about that. I'll do that as part of my review too. I was just in case it
Uh,
was on top of your head.
no, in case of our thing, I was mentioning the provider location is the file system name. Like we are using the file system name as the provider location. So whatever they within the provider location field, they have to mention the name of the file system. That's what I was mentioning. Um,
Yep, that makes sense.
okay.
I had a thing about the structure of this change. It is quite long, and I noticed the reason is because of the HPE driver changes as part of this. So I was going to ask you if you can split this. So the core Manila pieces can come as a separate change, and then the HPE driver as its own change that depends on that change.
Sure. Yeah, we can. I can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's been sort of another convention that we've been following, just so that we don't conflate driver changes with the with API changes. Um, so something that we can do over here as well. If it's small enough that is touching a lot of drivers, I understand, but this is doing a bulk of the work for the HPE driver. It would even help you, when you're writing stuff like release notes and documentation. You're talking about what it means for the OpenStack user, the OpenStack administrator, or even somebody that's reading the release notes to upgrade this stuff. The perspective that you would write the code change is different when you than when you write the driver change, right? So you're writing docs in a different place and so on.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I think yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Awesome. Um, yeah, nothing else stands out right away to point. Good job on the implementation, looks great, and is as Carlos, an extension of what Carlos was asking us. As long as this is being tested and the logs are being this thing, that something that the reviewers would probably look at as well on your CI.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I wanted to check with respect to the volume of the change, I'll make these changes as I mean whatever we've spoken now. I'll make it pretty quickly and um, send it out. But is this okay, or do you want me to reduce anything to get it into this release, or is the amount of change or volume of change okay? Because we want to get some of these features into this release. That's why.
Fine by me. Yeah, the only point is pretty much reiterating what Gotham was said earlier. Please split it up. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
one driver feature, and then there's gonna be the car piece. I think it's the feature, at least from this first glance, it sounds like it has the size it should have. And yeah, currently there doesn't seem to be a lot of over engineering and all of that, and plumbing other features into one. So that would be like an alarm for us, like if you are trying to merge a couple of features together with one.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it sounds like like it is a couple of different features. For example, the manage for snapshots and all that, but it's support for snapshots. So if we look at it as that way, maybe it's fine. But if other people and even if we wanted to split the snapshot features into different patches, I would still think this is okay to get as part of this release. So yeah, I don't have any concerns. I don't think, I'm not sure. I don't want to speak for other reviewers, but that's at least my take.
Okay, sure. Thanks. Yeah, I'll do this. Yeah, the splitting and the others. Yeah.
Any other questions for Shrinesh? Right. If not, thank you very much, everyone, for participating, and Srinesh for the topic. I think we can move on to the next topic. Um, oh, 1 second. Would you guys like a break? We've been discussing things for almost 1 hour and a half. If you're okay continuing, you can continue. Otherwise, we can catch a 5-minute break. Um, let's do a 5-minute break. Yeah, I think it's gonna be healthy for everyone. I don't know, maybe stepping away for 5 minutes, and then we can get back. And then we'll get back to the one node down failure design from NetApp engineers, Meta more specifically. Yeah, so we'll be back in 5 minutes time.